Hey everybody, Dolphin Kasper here. Welcome to the podcast. I am here with Susan Bratton. We've just been in conversation before we got on the air talking about the juicy goodness that we're going to talk about today. She is a sexuality and intimacy expert, and we're going to jump right into it. But for those listening, I just want you to know that we're going to get into some of the things that maybe we all should have learned when we were young, kind of like the ABCs, building blocks of what allows sexuality and intimacy to get better as we get older. And we're also going to get in there with some more specific techniques and maybe something we might call more advanced for those of us that want to take the sexuality in our lives to a new level. So Susan, thank you so much for taking the time to join me. And anything you want to start with, I'm totally happy. You talked about how, when it comes to sexuality that gets better over time, there are actually some pretty simple principles and things that we can start to do to immediately make things better. Where do you want to start with that?
Yeah, well, hey, handsome. How's it going today?
Fantastic.
Good. I appreciate your bravery about wanting to delve into passionate lovemaking. I've been writing sex techniques, hot sex techniques for 2 decades. How great is my job?
Pretty fantastic.
It's a pretty great job. And I also write bedroom communication skills, and I also teach and talk a lot about intimate wellness, which is basically, if you think about it, it's like the things that create the pleasure in the body, the things that stop the pleasure in the body, and the verbal facilitation of the two. So, I'm not a therapist. I don't sit in an office and work one-on-one with people, like you do with your coaching. I publish passionate lovemaking techniques. And one of the things that I really like to do is I like to explain to people what you're going for. If you're the kind of person that wants to have a great sex life that keeps getting better your whole life long, and that you want to use your sexuality as fuel, rocket fuel for your overall vitality, your creativity, your happiness, and the pleasure that is the antidote to the stress of the world that we live in today. If you think at the bottom line about what sex is, it's kind of like a combination of destabilizing that stress, lowering the cortisol by increasing oxytocin, hormone and neurotransmitter cascades, blood flow, oxygenation, brain function, calming, lowering the nervous system stress. It's that physiological, and then it's the heart, it's the love, it's the expansion, an opening of your heart to more love and joy and connection. And it's the authenticity, the being real, the removing of the veil, and just coming into full presence with another person or yourself in your, solo pleasuring. It's a lot about that. So you can think about it as like, wow, it's good for me. And it gives me some really good skills. Sex is a very mindful practice because it does require getting out of your head and into your body. For the masculine, generally, that's letting go of the strategizing and the wanting to do a perfect job. And for the feminine, it's about letting down the defenses because the feminine lives in a state of being preyed upon in the world. And so she has to kind of like stop being a multitasker and get that reticular activation system calmed down so she can get into the heart connection with her partner. And that being said, the masculine feminine piece of it, one of the things I really like to do is I like to state right up front that I am a rainbow sparkle pony, everybody gets a ride on the merry-go-round person. I feel like gender is actually a societal construct in many ways, the gender expression, and that we all have everything within us, from the masculine to the feminine. Just like as you become better at sex, you get what we call today more switchy. You go from being in the surrender to the being taking control type of experience. And I think that those skills just they bubble over, so the physical benefits, the emotional benefits, the mental benefits bubble over into the rest of the world because in your sexuality you actually have a place where you have a safe space to try things out, and it can be very experimental and therefore very empowering. Your sexuality is a seat of your empowerment. And so for all of those reasons, giving people like, okay, yeah, I want to be somebody who is having hot sex till the day I die. Like, this is a part of my commitment to my growth, because your sexual growth and your personal growth are two sides of the same coin. And so for those people, which it's very few people actually, Dolphin, it's amazing because most people give up their sexuality. Either it gets hijacked by, religious repression or societal repression, or it gets hijacked by, someone's own emotional issues and difficulty connecting with others, or it gets hijacked by the ill health of ultra processed food consumption and lack of working out. There's a lot of things that hijack one of the gifts of our humanity, our sexuality. Just like art and nature and, a love of friends and family and eating good food and moving in nature. And so only about 15% of people are willing to fight for their sexuality. And the good news is those 15% of your listeners are tuned into this episode there, who's listening to us right now. So I like to give them everything they need to have a hot sex life that keeps getting better, and not try to fix the people who've been lost. That's for therapists. And that's why I kind of started with this distinction that, like, what I do is teach hot sex techniques. So I don't know why, but I'm just really called to tell you about how I had sex last night. Would you like to hear about it?
Please, let's start there.
Yeah, I think it's just an illuminating story. And my sexuality has it takes a lot. It has a life of its own. I give my there's like a wild horse inside me that wants to have her head, and I let her run. I let her run up the mountains, along the ocean, with no saddle, and I just hang on for the ride. I don't own her. I can't tame her, nor would I want to. I like the wild horse that is my sexuality. And so I have the confidence now, and I'm 62, Dolphin. And I'm having the absolute most incredibly best sex of my life, and it just keeps getting better. And it's been getting better for decades because I've been studying sexuality. So last night I told my husband, so 2 nights ago, I asked my husband, I put on a sexy outfit for him because he really, really likes me to wear like super sexy lingerie and high heels and thigh-high stockings and things like that. That's one of his things that he loves. So I do that for him now and again. For me personally, I like to be totally naked with no scratchy stuff on or anything that's going to articulate my feet in a weird way. But, I do things for him that he finds pleasurable. So 2 nights ago, I said to him, I really want to stand up in front of you, and I want you to just adore me. And I want you to just go on and on and on and on. I want you to objectify me. I want you to talk about give me specifics about how sexy I am. I want you to acknowledge my brilliance, my brain, my business savvy. I want you to tell me what a great mother I am. Anything. Like, I really want to just stand there and have you just worship and adore me until I've had enough. And he said, okay, I'll do that for you. And I wanted to film it because I wanted to go over it again, because it's a lot to take in when someone's giving you what I like to call an angel shower, or they're just showering you with adoration. And so then he did that, and he gave me a yoni massage, and then we made love, had intercourse, and then we went to bed, and it was such a nice evening, and it was so relaxing, so much fun. He just loves to give me anything I'm in the mood for, and I'm always like, if I told you the last 5 dates, they'd be completely different experiences. And we wouldn't do that again. We would do something new. We're always doing new things. And I'd like to try a lot of new things too. As a sexpert, I feel like I need to do and know everything. And so there were a lot of things that I really liked about that, using that as an example today, that kind of go into what it is you're going for when you're thinking about your sexuality. But I'll stop for a second and kind of let you, digest that and ask me any questions or clarifications or what have you. And then I can kind of say, now, here's some of the things that I learned and why I can do these things. And I think sometimes having those can be so helpful.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, awesome story. I think I'm just thinking about the listener, and we have listeners of all ages. But I think some people are thinking like, wow, 62, and then we're getting just a flavor of what it is for you in your sexual world, and your desire to explore, your desire to keep kind of curious and like learn new things. Has it always been that way for you? I think I'm curious about a little bit about your journey, and then I would love to hear for those people that maybe think like, hey, I'm 30 or 40 and my love life is not like that. How do we start to move in that direction?
Yeah, let me ask a clarifying question from you. What is it that you think was in that story that most people are like, my love life's not like that? What do you think is not happening in your estimation?
Well, I mean, I think people don't realize how much communication tends to be there in relationships where the sexuality is really working. Like, people are really talking to each other. They're really asking each other questions. They're really curious about their partner's desires. They're curious about their partner's insecurities. They're curious about, like, what do we want to do tonight? How do we want to feel tonight? Like, what's something you've never done before? Like, these are the kinds of conversations that I think a kind of liberated, empowered sexuality inspires. And I don't think that's the norm. I think it could be the norm, but I don't think it's the norm.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you for that. Yeah. Everything that I talked about was just simply learned skills. 20 years ago, I almost got divorced from Tim. Now we've been together 32. We have a 27-year-old daughter. And the reason that we almost got divorced is that I wasn't having orgasms from intercourse. And I had intercourse with him for a dozen years. And I just didn't want to do it anymore. And then I avoided him for sex and used every excuse in the book because it just wasn't good for me. And it's because we didn't know what we were doing. And basically, he was masturbating inside me, and it wasn't pleasurable for me. But he loved me. He thought he was doing a good job. It was good for him. And so we did some therapy, which was fine and helpful. But what really helped us was going to sex workshops. But we are very brave. And most people won't do it, and they're expensive. And so after we started going to sex workshops, and it immediately, once we got the education that we needed, it immediately made our sex life great. And it's kept getting better since then because we've built on those foundation of skills. And I want to give you what I think the skills are that are the most important. And so our sex life has continued to thrive and improve because we've learned all of this information. And it's difficult because it's out there, but it's hard to find, and you have to find a sexpert who kind of matches your style. My brand, if you will, of sex techniques is heart connected, passionate, conscious lovemaking. Heart connected because so many men, especially, haven't learned, because our society is so brutal in men around emotion. Men haven't learned to connect their heart to their penis. And so they're, just really having this kind of like disconnected masturbatory, I'll strategize and, poke your buttons and spin your dials and make you come so I feel good about myself, but I'm not bringing my love, my vulnerability, my heart to it. And I think that for women, they feel like they should be having sex like men, or things they see on porn or in the movies, which is all just bullshit and not what the female body needs at all or how it works. And so then they think there's something wrong with them because they don't like sex. Well, they don't not like sex. They like sex if they could have the kind of sex that was great for them and their body. And so these are the biggest issues. But there are a lot of people out there who teach kink or BDSM, or they're teaching various, and I see a lot of sexperts saying things like, I was just reading an article from a sexpert who's got a big following, and they were talking about how nipplegasms aren't for everyone. And, some people have sensitivity and some people don't. And honestly, that's not true at all. Everyone, all bodies across the gender spectrum of both, penis owners, vulva owner, every can have over 20 kinds of orgasms, and they're all just learned skills. And that's why once you're like, oh my God, there's 20? And it's like, yeah, and I have 48 erotic play dates of things that you can try and ideas that you can do that are super fun and sexy. And they're like 48 things we could do. Wow. Okay. And it's just like there's so much out there, but it's censored and hard to find. And so that's just my style, is helping people activate their body, activate their heart, activate their communication skills, teaching people that dirty talk isn't dirty. It's adoration, it's worship, it's praise, it's encouragement, it's saying what you see, noticing your lover, it's reflection, it's positive feedback, it's sharing things that felt particularly good after the date. I mean, there's so many things just in the category of, quote unquote, dirty talk. Moaning is really, really important. People need that auditory feedback to know that you're having pleasure. And so many people are just quiet. I mean, there's just all these little places that you can mine for more pleasure. And so I just have been learning with my husband. We've just been on this journey to learn and then to teach people what we've found: orgasmic activation, orgasmic cross training, all the pleasurable conversation you can have, the kinds of dates, the things you can learn. And probably of all of it, the number one thing that I teach is something that I call my Sexual Soulmate Pact, PACT. It's an agreement between lovers that makes it really easy to ask for anything, to say anything, and have your partner not contract around it or feel rejected or like they took it as something they did wrong, but instead trains them to realize that they love getting the feedback because it makes them better, and that every single day you're together, you're going to have a different sexual experience because how much stress you're under, how much sleep you've gotten, how much junk food you've eaten, how much exercise you've gotten, everything, especially for people of the female persuasion, they go through these 28-day cycles. Even after menopause, we're very cyclical too. And so every day you want something different. So why wouldn't you have this comfort of just being able to say like where you are with things? And I think those are some of the things that are like very fundamental. It's like, oh, I need to learn about my genital structures. I need to understand the difference between the male and the female arousal patterns. I need to understand how to ask for what I want and feel really, really safe in doing so, and my partner feeling the same way about me. I need to learn pleasuring techniques, oral intercourse, kissing, breast play, yoni and lingam massage. These are kind of like the 5, foundation skill sets of the pleasuring technique. And when you start just like learning, one of the things that's great about sex is that I always say that techniques are like little hinges that swing great big doors. It's just an easy thing to learn that has a massively profound effect. That's what's great about sex, is it's a whole bunch of little hinges that swing giant doors open to your pleasure and connection. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I mean, I want to get in. You spoke about, like at the beginning, you spoke about some pieces that maybe people aren't really thinking about, like, the kind of diet and processed foods you're eating, and some of the other factors that are like your just day-to-day lifestyle that might be shutting down or kind of closing you off to your own sexuality. And then, so like, I'm curious about that. Any ABCs, like fundamentals for that you would recommend? And then also when we talk about techniques, like you talked about kind of talking dirty, talking sexy. That feels, I think, for some people like, whoa, like you talked about the pact, and I'm wondering if the pact is sort of like a bridge for people to create the safe space where that kind of playfulness and sexuality and sort of sexy play starts to feel more comfortable versus, like fear is a big thing for people around sex. And so I'm just curious from your perspective, other than just the technique side, which I'd still like to get into more details, where's the bridge for people that feel like that world of sexuality is still like kind of out of reach for them?
Yeah. So the Sexual Soulmate Pact, it's at, you can put this one in the show notes, Dolphin. It's at sexualsoulmatepact.com. It's a free download. And what it does is you basically print it out and you read it and your partner reads it and then you discuss it and then you enter into the agreement and then you support each other in learning how to have this interflow of communication, this easeful, graceful, loving, interactive communication during intimacy. And then from there, you can begin to have the techniques that layer on top, because you can't really do the techniques if your partner can't say, that's too hard, that's too, so, oh, I don't like that there. Or, you did that thing to me the other day, that little thing to my labia, do that some more. Or, there's this little spot that I need you to just rub until I say stop. Or, what I'm really feeling like? I'm really wanting you in my mouth and I'd like to play around with it, but I don't want you to come because it would be too much for me. I want you to just take my pleasure a little bit and just kind of get, warmed up or whatever, there's a million things you could say. And so the Sexual Soulmate Pact is that base layer. That's the step up into all the other things that you learn. That's where you start, is with your communication. And then you can start on all the sensual talk and the dirty talk and all that. That's at dirtytalkbook.com, another free download. I do a lot of free download things because number one, I have an email newsletter and I send out sex techniques 5 days a week in my email newsletter. And then everyone who gets my newsletter, they reply to me and they ask me questions and then, or they tell me what's going on in their life and have me solve their problem. And then that's what I put in the newsletters, because the thing about, I've been doing this for decades and I've talked to millions of people have come through my world over the decades, and they ask me the same things over and over again. Not a lot changes. There are some new interesting kind of areas where, like, for example, I've seen a rise in couples' willingness to incorporate pleasure tools into their love making. Like I was saying, I love my Vim, and I have a lot of toys I like. One of the other ones that's like a top seller is this Manta, which women love to use to orally pleasure their male partners, where they run this up and down the shaft while they use their mouth on them. So there's like all kinds of really fun tools and toys you can, use on each other. And I think once you get the basics down, like orgasmic intercourse, that is a huge one. I mean, most people can kind of muddle by on the oral and it's going to be good enough. But if the woman isn't orgasming from intercourse, how long is she going to want to do it? And because all we see is porn, and porn is not heart-connected, passionate, conscious lovemaking. It is a masturbatory movie made for men to get off on, that now women are starting to use, and they think it's a good idea. And there's a lot of things in porn that I don't even recommend doing, like rimming. Are you kidding me? Who the hell wants to get parasites and E. coli? Like, the things that you see in porn, they're faking it. They're doing many takes. They're actors. They're not orgasming. That's why it's hard to believe when I say I rode him and I came and I came and I came and I came, because most people's perspective of an orgasm is, I'm going to have intercourse and I'm going to be lucky if I have one climax. And that's what men are doing. And that's even a disservice for men. Men have conflated ejaculation and orgasm. There are some men now that are like, I want to become a multi-orgasmic man. I want to have P-spot orgasms. They're learning more orgasmic techniques. They're open to thinking, oh, it's not just this one way. So I think it's just this idea that you begin with the communication skills and then you layer on the techniques. And I think if you're in a heterosexual combination or a penis vulva combination, whatever you want to, call that, orgasmic intercourse is very important. And most women think, oh, I'm just not. I just am not the kind. I just can't do it. I wish I could. I hear some women can, but I can't. And then their partner's like, "Oh, I guess you can't. I'm sorry, but we're still having intercourse." And then they're like, "I'll just do it to feel close to him." And I'm like, "That is bullshit, girl. You need to learn how to come while you're getting railed." And once they realize, "Oh, you mean I could learn how to do it? How do I do it?" And I go, orgasmicintercourse.com. It has the 10 techniques. Start with thrust in time. That's a good one. And when they get the stimulation they need, that the vagina needs, that the female body needs, all of a sudden they're coming like crazy. So I think if there was one myth I could dispel, it would be the "I'm just not the person who can do that" myth, because it's just learned skills. I've taught myself all 20 kinds of orgasms, and I've done it over the last 20 years. And I started off with clitoral orgasms, and then I wanted to activate my G spot. It was very armored. I needed it to be let go. I had a lot of sexual traumas that I had to get over, terrible dates and awful sex and, awful, just a lot of people. We just have really bad experiences. And then I wanted to learn how to ejaculate. I liked female ejaculation. And that's an incredibly empowering experience for women and their partners, because you're getting things wet. You're taking up space. You're just letting it go. And like, we women have been so cowed in our sexuality that when we just start being like going for it and, just like having these incredible releases of amorita, and all women can do it. It's how our bodies work. Some people do it naturally, if you will, and other people just have to learn how. And, then I started having nipplegasms and coregasms and footgasms and throatgasms, and Jesus, I mean, it's just incredible. In any given sex session, sex date with my partner, I'll have 5, 6, 7 kinds of orgasms. And that guy can play me like a Stradivarius, I gotta tell you. And all I did was learn how to do it. And that's literally what I teach.
So you talked about the 10 orgasmic intercourse techniques. Can you give us like a sneak peek or like a couple? You could talk about thrusting in time. Yeah, tell us a little bit more, and obviously people can go and check out the link. It'll be in the show notes. But yeah, I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, and yeah, we'll see where we go from there.
Okay. So thrust in time is it's basically an ancient Taoist technique that I upgraded for 21st century couples. The Taoists, they did a lot of the semen retention. This is all the Montauk Chia work and things like that. But the Taoists were really doing semen retention for longevity. And it turns out that they were holding their semen in because it has a couple of interesting components in semen that actually help with 9 of the 12 hallmarks of aging, like telomere lengthening, like autophagy, which is cleaning out cellular debris, things like that. And so they didn't really care whether their concubines lived or not. They were replaceable, but the emperor, he wanted to last a long time, so he held his semen in. It's spermidine, putrescine, and spermine. They're polyamines found in semen and breast milk that keep us living longer. But I don't like semen retention unless you're the guy who, when he ejaculates, he feels depressed or depleted or sad. I don't think semen retention is really a good idea. People who ejaculate frequently, they're much healthier and have much less incidence of prostate issues, including prostate cancer. But I do recommend taking Primedyne, which is Oxford Health Span's spermidine supplement. It can come from wheat germ or chlorella. And then you can get the benefits of those polyamines and ejaculate all you want. And what's nice about ejaculation is that ejaculate has over 20 excellent beneficial ingredients for your partner. So testosterone to give us more confidence and turn on, zinc for cognitive function, luteinizing hormone that regulates our menstrual cycles, serotonin as a mood lifter, plus all the polyamines I talked about. And so, it's very, very biologically like synergistic, the love making exchanges, the spit and the amrita and the ejaculate and things. These are healthy things. And thrust in time is a pumping technique, like an intercourse stroking technique that is to do two things. Number one, to help men last longer. It increases male stamina. Because most men want to last as long as they can. Most men would like to achieve ejaculatory choice, which is, I want to ejaculate when I want to. I want to be able to control when I do it so that I can last as long. She'll beg me to come, and then I know it's wanted, and then, that feels really good to me. And then for women, it's what they want is they want to have orgasms from intercourse, but they haven't. And so what the thrust in time technique does is it essentially uses a 10 count of strokes. There's 2 strokes. First stroke is very shallow and very slow. The whole thing is slow. It's not pump, 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 pump. It's very slow. And the first is not very far in, so not deep, very shallow, and just kind of the tip, and just really smooth strokes. And then the other stroke is the deep stroke, and that's the all the way in, deep but slow, and then all the way out. And what you do is you start with 9 shallow strokes and 1 deep stroke. And then you do 8 shallow, 2 deep, 7 shallow, 3 deep, 6 shallow, 4, like that. And by the time you get to 4 or 5, somewhere in there, she is likely going to have her first orgasm from intercourse. And the reason is that just pumping all the time the same, it doesn't toggle her parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. And the way the arousal ladder works in the human body, it needs to be toggled. And it's like stairs that she needs to climb. When a guy gets turned on, it's like he's climbing a ladder. He's going almost straight up because he has very fast-acting blood flow that fills his penis up quickly. He's got fast-acting hemodynamics, and he's got 3 tubes that are straight shots down his penis. And he's got more testosterone. He has nocturnal erections. He wakes up with a morning hard-on. He's horny a lot. And so he's ready to go. Boop, straight up the ladder. She is a stair step that goes very slowly because she's got 3 erectile tissue chambers, the clitoral, urethral, and perineal, but they're in these little nooks and crannies all inside the vulva. She's got as much erectile tissue in her vulva as he does in his penis. If I took them out of you and me, Dolphin, they would cover my hands, both of them. You have all of your erectile tissue in your penis, which is half of what you see sticks out, half of what you see goes in and down towards your testicles. That's a lot of tissue in that penis. If I took that out of my vulva and put it in my hand, it would be the same amount. But we don't think about it that way, and that we need 20 to 30 minutes to get the blood seeping in. So one of the things that's really beneficial is getting your woman fully engorged before you even penetrate her with this thrust and time technique by giving her yoni massages. And yoni massages, I'm going to go back to that Foria lube that I used on Tim's penis, the sex oil. They have 3 products. I call it my pleasure protocol. And that's a link, pleasureprotocol.com. You start with the melt up inside the vagina, and it's this little cocoa butter melt with botanicals and CBD that melts and coats the vaginal lining and activates the endocannabinoid system. So your brain starts to connect to your vagina. And then I take their Awaken and I coat it on the outside of the vulva. It starts the mind body connection, because you know your brain's your biggest sex organ, right? So you got to get it activated. That's what processes sensation as pleasure. And then add sex oil on for as much glide and slide as you want. And what's nice about having the three things together is that they very synergistically activate the vulva. And the Awaken is almost like a pre-lubricant. It starts to bring the blood flow down into the pelvic bowl. It begins the body's let-down process of blood flow. So the blood can go into the nooks and crannies, and then a woman gets her lady boner, if you will. She gets her vulval erection, and all her erectile tissue is actually wrapped all the way around her vagina. So once it gets fluffy and plump and engorged, it's got all this surface area that's sending massively more signals to the brain. So most women have gotten penetrated way too early pretty much every time they've had sex, because they're going on the time frame of the male body rather than the time frame of the female body. So if you yoni massage her first with all of those ingredients, and then you slowly start this penetration practice, real slow, with all that great lubrication and all that awakening and activation, now when you get to the stroke, like when you get to 3 deep strokes and then you get to 4 deep strokes, she's going to want more deep strokes, but you don't give them to her. You go back to the short, shallow strokes, which basically, if you think about a vagina, I know this is an audio podcast for most people, but if you think about the vagina, imagine a little balloon, like the kind of balloon that you make a water balloon out of, like a little round balloon with a little neck and a little crooked sphincter thing at the end. You've got a sphincter, then you've got a little neck of the vagina, and then it opens into more of this round thing. But it's flat. It's like a pocket without a hand or any cash in it. At first, it's flat. But once it gets engorged, it actually balloons up a bit. And so it likes those shallow strokes in the neck, and then it loves those long, deep strokes in the cave. And a lot of the things on orgasmic intercourse are different places to stroke the cave, different ways to stroke the cave, because she doesn't have an inside-out penis. She doesn't want, she wants some of that, but she needs other things too. So once you get her to like 5 deep strokes, oh my God, it feels so damn luscious that she's gonna get so close. By the time you're 6 deep strokes in, she's having her first orgasm from intercourse. It's just, so you take those steps, you know those things, and you go, oh, okay, so it's not just what I see in porn with the massive schlongs. No, it's not at all. And so I think that that's a good place to start, as thrust in time. And it has, sex positions I recommend for it and all kinds of things. And here's the thing about the count. The short strokes really help the guy not come too fast, which is great. The counting also helps the guy, because he kind of has to have his mind on the counting a little bit. But over time, you know that thing, Dolphin, where it's like you start out being consciously incompetent, and over time, as you practice, you get unconsciously competent. That's what thrust in time becomes, and all of a sudden, you're lasting longer. She's coming the whole time. You're not even counting anymore. You just kind of know what to do, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I imagine just the counting isn't the thing, but because of what we've learned and our habits, the counting allows us to then engage in a way that's more conscious and that addresses the rhythm of the woman much more closely than the man, which is, again, where a lot of modern sexuality sits. Is like it's all oriented to the man. The pornography is almost all created for the men. And yeah, I just appreciate the simplicity of that. And for people listening at the beginning of the conversation, you may have been thinking, "Oh gosh, like how can I learn this?" And it's just there's so much, and it's this big scary universe that a lot of people have barely dipped their toe in. And I love that the techniques you're talking about are so accessible. I think anyone can use them, try them, play with them. And I think once we break down that barrier of our own disbelief that it can be better, um, all of a sudden we become much more available to the kind of play and learning and growth and exploration that you're talking about.
So are you going to try the thrust in time next time you make love?
Well, I mean, I already do that. So, for me, part of the lovemaking process is like listening to her body, because she's constantly giving me information about what works, what doesn't, what feels good, what doesn't feel good. And so, I think that's a never-ending learning for us with our partner, or at least it should be. But if you're genuinely curious about like how is this for her, then those are the kinds of things that now I think some women are more forthcoming and expressive about what feels good and what doesn't. So that's also maybe a part of the exploration for couples is, like how safe does she feel to like really let you know when it feels good and to really let you know when it doesn't. But no matter what, the body is expressing how it feels. And so, having an orientation for me, just this awareness of her breath and like what's happening with her muscle tone and what is she doing with her hips and is she pulling me closer? Like these are all subtle or not so subtle indications of how it is for her. So this is, I'm doing that already, and I'm gonna play in that space much more. I like how you described it, and I can see all sorts of ways to play with that. Yeah. So, I think people are listening. I think they're you're juicy. You tell good stories, and then I think, you're suited for video and audio. I think people who are just listening are really getting what you're talking about. I'm curious for people that have been enjoying the conversation and there's still apprehension, or, I think there's also, and we don't need to get into it, this, and it might not be your forte, but like, there's the relational side. And I think if things aren't going well in relationship, then I think some people think, okay, we got to get all good on the surface before the sexuality can start to move in a better way. And what I'm clear is it's not either or. Like, you don't have to wait until all of your conflicts are sorted out to start giving your sexuality a chance to kind of deepen and evolve. How do you balance that, or do you balance that with people, or are you saying like, look, I'm going to help you with the sexuality piece, and if you want to do the emotional conflict resolution stuff, like that's for someone else? I'm just curious your thoughts and take on that.
Yeah, there's two things. The first is that there are some reasons why it is important to fix your relationship first and not just cover it over. Probably one of my most popular books is a little workbook called Relationship Magic. And it is a workbook for couples that essentially the idea is that we tend to treat our partners the way we want them to treat us. That's natural. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. That's the golden rule. But the platinum rule is treat your partner the way they want to be treated because they're a very different person. For the large majority of us, we're women married to men or in relationship with men or what have you, and vice versa. And my God, I mean, we're completely different in our hormone profiles, in the way we are in our cultures, etc. You wouldn't want to treat your man like a woman or your woman like a man. And the Relationship Magic workbook, you can get it on Amazon, but it's cheaper if you go to myrelationshipmagic.com because it's a PDF printout. It's like $9.97 there. I would go there and get it, not bother getting the printed book. What it does is it's essentially a values elicitation. It helps understand what it is you value most in a relationship, and then rank order that, and then really focus on the top four things you need most in your relationship. For example, the number one thing for me that I need from my husband is security. I need him to take care of me, just watch over me. He's my protector. And the second thing that I need is freedom because I get a lot of opportunities come my way and I like to go out and do things. And he's a bit more of an introvert. And so I need him to completely take care of me and let me do whatever I want. And he's happy for that. That's not a problem for him. Because I make good decisions. I'm not doing stupid things. And then we align around the area of honesty. We both have a radically honest relationship with each other and all our friends and our family and the people we work with. I'm not interested in filtering myself or having to think about what I say. I'm a kind person, so what comes out is typically, kind. And I make mistakes. I say stupid things I regret. But generally, I just have stopped. I have unlearned walking on eggshells and withholding and glossing over things and, stuffing it. I don't do that. I'm just completely 100% in thorough conversation with my friends and family, and that's very important to him as well. And then for me, I think after that, it's probably things like variety, but also intimacy and pleasure. I need a lot of pleasure, like yoni massages, expanded orgasm dates. I just need a lot of them. I like that now that I'm good at it. Where my husband, for him, number one is passion. He doesn't need me to, he wants me to make love, be sexy, wear cute clothes, and feed him. He loves me to cook for him. And literally, I bring food to his office and feed him so he doesn't even have to leave his computer monitors. Like, he just loves to work. He's a very big brain and he needs a lot of meat for that brain. And so I bring him big Dagwood sandwiches and stuff. And that makes him happy. Honesty, sexiness, the food, the caretaking, that makes, and then I push him. One of his relationship values is growth. And I know what he's capable of. And if he's not living up to his capabilities, he likes me to be like, my dude, you're kind of falling down around this thing. Like the other day, he wasn't getting enough working out. And I said to him, I'm going to start charging you $100 cash a day for every day that you don't get out of that chair and work out. You have a membership to the Smart Fit and you're not going, and I don't like to see you. I feel you're aging and it's time for you to get your ass in gear. And he goes, I'm not giving you I'm not giving you $100 cash a day. But the next day, he went and he worked out. So like it was just like the threat of him having to pay me if he didn't work out. Like, I know his buttons, you know what I mean? Like, that guy does not like to pay him for shit. He doesn't want to spend any money. And so as soon as I made it like it was going to cost him money if he didn't work out, he started doing it. Now I'll have to rag on him to get him to keep going, or he'll be like, where's my 100, that kind of thing. But so we figured out what it is that he wants, and I just get up every day and I do it. I feed him, I fuck him, like that's what I do. That's what he wants. I'm honest with him and I tell him what he's capable of. I show him the man he can continue to be, and I honor him for it and I respect him for it, and I tell him all the great things he does. And that's the things that he does for me, or he keeps me safe and he lets me go play and I can tell him my truth and he can handle it, and we're passionate, and that works really well. But before we realized that, we spent a decade of our marriage treating each other the way we wanted to be treated, and it made no sense for us. And so learning the relationship magic, values, elicitation, and then describing in great detail what that meant for us allowed us to get up every day and just focus on what made our partner happy. And then the other thing, and that's at myrelationshipmagic.com, and then the other thing that I think is really good is like, okay, where do we go from here? What do we want to learn? What should we be doing? Like, where do we go? Sexuality is such a vast landscape that people enter into it from so many different places that what I did was I put together this sex life bucket list, and it works just as well if you're single as it does if you're in a polycule. And it's essentially, it's at sexlifebucketlist.com, and you print it out, and it is 8 pages of all these different fun erotic play dates that you could have, things you can learn solo or together. And it comes with a video where I walk you through them. It's free. And you mark it, each one, there's a place to mark an A, a B, or a C. A is, oh, this is definitely going on my bucket list. B is, it's not for me, but Dolphin, if you wanted to do it, I would do it with you. It would be my pleasure if that's what you want to try. And C is, it's not for me right now. Never say never, because there's nothing yucky on this list. There's nothing that would embarrass you in front of your partner. But there will be many things you're like, I never even heard of that, but that sounds really interesting. Or, we talked about it, or we did it once, or whatever. I want to do it again, or I really want to do it. And so I think that between getting your relationship values straightened out so that you start being in the relationship that is the relationship that is perfect for you. And one of the tricks in this book that works really well is that you think about the relationships you had in the past that were bad, the things you didn't like, and it's usually because it was the opposite of the thing you value, right? And so it helps you understand what you value as well. And so the relationship magic with the sex life bucket list kind of answers that question you said, which was, where do we go from here? How do we fix the foundation? And then how do we take it to the next level sexually?
Yeah. Awesome. So where I'd like to go, because I think we're kind of getting close to our time, you're doing this beautiful work in the world. I think there's a two-part question. I want to know, what's your favorite part about this being your work in the world? Because I think that's probably a great answer. And then for those listening, for those that are feeling like, wow, like I wish I knew this stuff 20, 30, 40 years ago, how as a community, as a society, how do we get better? How do we create a society that's, people talk about sex positivity, and I think there's a long way to go, but as someone who's educating on pleasure and lifelong intimacy and the enjoyment and the passion of having a sex life that feeds you and kind of motivates you and inspires you, what do we do? So first, what do you love about this work, and what do we do more broadly, like as a society? How do we get better in this world of sexuality?
Yeah. What I love most are my fans. I am so loved, Dolphin. Oh my God. I mean, like, so many people love me so much because I've taught them things that make their life in the area that's so important to them so much better. And so, all the love that I get, that's my favorite thing. And how to fix our world is to show up as a sexually empowered being who owns your sovereignty around your sexuality unapologetically, and who models that for others, and that you support whatever sexperts you like. I may be I'm some people's cup of tea, and I'm not some people's cup of tea, and I am okay with that. But there's so many of us out there now that really want to help. So find the people who make you feel empowered and cared about, and work with them. Subscribe to their newsletters, read their books, buy their programs, tell your friends. Because first of all, thank you so much for having me on your show. It is risky to invite sexperts onto a show. You never know what's going to happen, right? I mean, it's an edge for everyone. And so you took that risk, and you used your platform and the trust that you've created with your fans to choose me to talk about your sexuality with. And podcasting is really the only bastion of uncensored dialogue that is not pornography or the media industry's strategy to manipulate us. And so thank you for having a show where people like myself can help others, because that's what we want to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pleasure. I love doing this, and yeah, this show was definitely a little spicier than the usual flavor, which I love. Like, to me, this show is about all of the ways we can make our relationships better, and if we're not aware that sexuality is at the heart of our relationships, then we're just fooling ourselves, really. So I just appreciate you and your all inness with your life and your work, and sharing what you've learned so generously. All of the links that have been talked about in the conversation will be in the show notes. If you want more from Susan, I'm sure you can reach her at those links. Is there a specific website that if they just want more of you, that they can go to?
Well, you can go to moresusan.com and find all the links to all my things. That's easy.
And
If you want
that's
more
part of
Susan.
Is it more Susan or just Susan?
More Susan.
More Susan. Let's go to moresusan.com.
Yeah.
More Susan.
It's almost like you
Great.
knew somehow that was my URL. How do we
Yeah,
get more
well,
Susan? Go to moresusan.com.
Intuition. I love that. I love that website. Okay. Well, Susan,
Good.
thank you so much for being here. For those listening, thank you for being with us. Obviously, so much more to come. I'm sure we'll have a chance to cross paths again. Until
I
then,
hope
be
so.
well. And for those of you that are here, kind of on board with the show, until next time, love well.